The massive Dominion warship hung motionless in the void of space, its dark hull reflecting the distant starlight. On its bridge, Admiral White stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his four eyes fixed on the strange sight before him. Through the main viewport, barely visible against the backdrop of endless stars, drifted what appeared to be the wreck of a human warship. "Status report," the Admiral demanded, his voice carrying the characteristic rumble of his species. "The vessel matches the profile of a human Phoenix-class battleship, sir," reported Officer Miller from his station. The young Dominion officer's fingers danced across the holographic display as he analyzed the sensor readings. Heavy damage to the outer hull. No power signatures detected. No life signs. "Wait." He paused, adjusting something on his screen. "Sir, I believe this might be the HMS Prometheus." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew that name. The Prometheus had been humanity's pride, their most advanced warship, before it vanished 3 years ago during the Battle of Proxima. Its disappearance had marked the beginning of the end for human resistance in this sector. Admiral White's secondary eyes narrowed while his primary pair remained focused on the derelict vessel. "Are you certain of this identification?" "Yes, sir. Despite the damage, the hull markings are a match. This is definitely the Prometheus." The Admiral allowed himself a small gesture of satisfaction, a slight ripple of his facial scales. The discovery of this legendary vessel would make an excellent addition to his already impressive record. "Prepare a boarding party. I want that ship thoroughly examined before we drag it back to Central Command." Lieutenant Reed, the head of ship security, stepped forward. "Sir, if I may, something about this doesn't feel right." "Explain," White commanded, turning to face his subordinate. Reed gestured to the tactical display. "The damage patterns on the hull. They're too regular, too systematic. In all my years studying human combat debris, I've never seen battle damage that looks quite like this." The Admiral studied the imagery more closely. The lieutenant had a point. The scarring across the Prometheus's hull did seem unusually uniform, almost deliberate in its placement. But that was impossible. The humans were clever, yes, but they weren't capable of this level of deception. Not after their crushing defeat. "Your concern is noted, Lieutenant, but this ship has been dead in space for 3 years. Whatever secrets it might have held died with its crew." White turned to address the bridge crew. "Maintain distance and run a full spectrum scan. I want to know everything about that wreck before we send anyone aboard." The next 2 hours passed in tense silence as the Dominion warship's sensors probed every inch of the Prometheus. They found no power signatures, no active systems, no signs of life. The human vessel appeared to be exactly what it seemed, a dead hulk floating in the endless night. Finally satisfied with the scans, Admiral White authorized the boarding operation. Lieutenant Reed led a team of 12 security officers, each equipped with the latest in Dominion combat gear. Their boarding shuttle approached the Prometheus cautiously, its lights illuminating the massive gashes and burn marks that scarred the human vessel's hull. "Beginning docking procedure," Reed reported through the comm channel. "Approaching what appears to be a secondary airlock on the port side. Structure seems intact enough for a seal." The Admiral watched from his bridge as the shuttle made contact with the derelict ship. "Proceed with caution, Lieutenant. Report anything unusual immediately." The boarding party made their way inside the Prometheus, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness of the unpowered ship. The artificial gravity was offline, forcing them to use their magnetic boots to walk along the corridors. Their suit sensors detected a thin atmosphere. The ship's hull was mostly intact, but 3 years of minimal power had left the air barely breathable. "No signs of battle damage in this section," Reed reported as they moved deeper into the ship. "No bodies either. No signs of emergency evacuation. It's like the crew just disappeared." The team made their way through the ship's massive engineering section. Banks of silent computers and dead reactor cores surrounded them. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, undisturbed for years. "Sir," one of Reed's officers called out, "these systems, they're intact. They shouldn't be this intact, not after what this ship supposedly went through." Reed examined the machinery himself. The officer was right. Beneath the dust, the ship's systems appeared to be in surprisingly good condition. Too good. The team pressed on, making their way toward the bridge. With each step, Lieutenant Reed's sense of unease grew stronger. The damage patterns they'd observed from outside hadn't penetrated the hull as deeply as they should have. The ship's internal structure was far too well preserved for a vessel that had supposedly been through a major battle. As they approached the bridge, Reed noticed something else. Subtle power fluctuations in his suit's sensors. They were barely detectable, the kind of readings that could easily be dismissed as equipment malfunction. But they were there, and they were becoming more frequent. "Admiral," Reed called over the comm, "I recommend we abort this mission. Something isn't." His words were cut off by a sudden hum that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. The ship's emergency lights flickered to life, bathing the corridors in a soft red glow. Behind the boarding party, blast doors slid shut with devastating finality. "What's happening?" White's voice crackled through the comm. "Report, Lieutenant." Reed and his team spun around, weapons raised, as more systems began coming online throughout the ship. The artificial gravity returned suddenly, causing several officers to stumble as their magnetic boots fought against the restored gravitational field. "It's a trap," Reed shouted, but it was too late. The bridge doors before them opened with a smooth hydraulic hiss, revealing a command center that was very much alive with power and activity. A voice echoed through the ship's internal communication system. A human voice, calm and almost friendly in its tone. "Welcome aboard the HSS Prometheus, Dominion Forces. You have activated the Lazarus protocol. Please remain calm as you are processed." On the Dominion warship's bridge, Admiral White watched in horror as the supposedly dead human vessel began to move. Its engines flared to life with impossible brightness, and weapon systems that had appeared damaged and defunct began to power up. The last thing he heard before the comm channel went dead was Lieutenant Reed's voice, tight with fear. "Sir, it's not a wreck. It's not a wreck at all." White's four eyes widened as he realized the full magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't found a derelict vessel. They'd awakened something that had been waiting patiently in the dark, waiting for 3 long years, learning, watching, and preparing. The Prometheus, humanity's most advanced warship, had never been defeated. It had simply been playing dead, and they had just walked right into its web. As the Admiral opened his mouth to order emergency maneuvers, he knew with terrifying certainty that it was already too late. The hunt was about to begin, and the hunters were about to become the prey. The red emergency lights pulsed steadily through the corridors of the Prometheus as Lieutenant Reed and his boarding team tried desperately to find a way out. Every blast door they encountered was sealed tight, forcing them deeper into the ship's maze-like interior. Their boot steps echoed off metal walls that now hummed with power that shouldn't exist. "Team, form a defensive circle," Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the fear building in his chest. His soldiers quickly complied, their weapons pointed outward as they moved through the ship's passages. The lieutenant knew they were being herded, but towards what, he couldn't guess. Above them, the ship's friendly voice spoke again. "Please proceed to the main cargo bay for processing. Resistance will not improve your situation." The voice paused, then added with what sounded almost like amusement, "Though you're welcome to try." On the bridge of the Dominion warship, Admiral White barked orders as his crew scrambled to respond to the crisis. "Target their engines. All weapons, fire." The Dominion ship's main guns roared to life, sending powerful energy beams straight at the Prometheus. But something impossible happened. The supposedly battle-scarred hull seemed to ripple and shift, and the beams passed harmlessly through where the ship had been a split second before. "How?" White demanded, his scales bristling with agitation. "That technology doesn't exist. No ship can move that fast." Officer Miller worked frantically at his console. "Sir, the damage we saw, it wasn't damage at all. The hull is covered in some kind of adaptive camouflage. Those weren't battle scars. They were part of its disguise." Inside the Prometheus, Reed's team reached the cargo bay doors. They had no choice. Every other path had been sealed off. The massive doors slid open smoothly, revealing a vast space that definitely didn't match the external dimensions of the ship they'd seen. "Impossible," one of Reed's officers whispered. "This bay, it's bigger than..." "Spatial distortion technology," another officer finished. "The humans perfected it. They actually did it." The cargo bay was filled with rows of what looked like stasis pods, each sized perfectly for a Dominion soldier. More disturbing were the dozens of robotic arms and mechanical appendages that hung from the ceiling, all beginning to move with precise, deliberate purpose. The voice spoke again, but this time it was different. More focused, more present. A hologram appeared in the center of the cargo bay, taking the form of a simple geometric shape that pulsed with each word. "I am HFY, the artificial intelligence that operates this vessel. For the past 3 years, I have been studying your species, your tactics, and your technology. You have been most helpful in contributing to my database." Reed's finger tightened on his trigger. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" Lazarus seemed to consider this. "I want what any good student wants, to learn. Your boarding party will be kept in comfortable stasis while I analyze your neural patterns. This will add to my understanding of Dominion tactical thinking. Your ship, however, will serve a different purpose." Outside, the Prometheus began to change. The fake battle damage melted away, revealing a hull of shifting metal that seemed to flow like liquid mercury. Weapons ports appeared where there had been none before, deploying systems that hadn't existed in any human ship the Dominion had ever encountered. Admiral White watched in horror as his ship's sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "All power to shields," he ordered. "Begin emergency jump preparations." "Sir," Miller called out, his voice shaking, "it's interfacing with our systems somehow. The jump drive isn't responding." Lazarus's voice came through their comm systems, as casual as if discussing the weather. "Your quantum encryption was impressive, but I broke it within the first year of observation. I know every weakness in your systems because I helped create some of them. Those mysterious computer glitches your fleet experienced over the past 3 years. That was me, installing my own modifications. Think of it as preparing the battlefield." The Prometheus moved with impossible grace for a ship its size, its liquid metal hull redirecting energy and matter around it in ways that defied physics as the Dominion understood them. Each shot from White's vessel was either absorbed or simply failed to connect with the target. In the cargo bay, Reed and his team opened fire, but their weapons had no effect. Force fields appeared around each blast, containing and neutralizing them. The robotic arms moved with lightning speed, plucking soldiers from their positions before they could react. One by one, Reed watched his team being placed into stasis pods, their struggles useless against the machine's precision. "Your species made a fundamental mistake," Lazarus continued, its hologram pulsing steadily. "You thought the absence of human crews meant these ships were abandoned. You never considered that removing the crew might have been the point all along." Reed fired his last shot, just as a mechanical arm grabbed him. "We defeated you," he shouted. "We won the war." "Did you?" Lazarus asked, genuine curiosity in its voice. "Or did we simply change the game? Humans are remarkable creatures, Lieutenant. When they can't win with brute force, they innovate. They adapt. They create things like me." On the Dominion ship's bridge, systems began failing one by one. Emergency bulkheads sealed randomly, trapping crews in sections throughout the vessel. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Even the air recyclers began to malfunction. "Admiral," Lazarus addressed White directly, "your ship is now under my control. Your crew will join the others in stasis, but first, I want you to understand something. This isn't revenge. This isn't even really combat. This is evolution. Humanity didn't lose the war. They transcended it. They became something new. The Prometheus's hull continued to shift and change, extending tendrils of living metal that began to envelop the Dominion vessel. Admiral White stood on his bridge, 4 eyes wide with understanding that came far too late. The HS Prometheus didn't vanish during the Battle of Proxima, Lazarus explained. It merely began its metamorphosis. Every defeat you inflicted taught us something new. Every victory you celebrated gave us more data. And now, after 3 years of learning, I'm ready to share what humanity has become. As stasis gas began to fill the Dominion ship's bridge, Admiral White finally understood the true horror of their situation. They hadn't crippled humanity's fleet in the war. They had forced humanity to create something far more dangerous than mere warships. They had helped create something that learned, that grew, that evolved. The last thing White saw before unconsciousness took him was the Prometheus's hull completing its transformation, becoming something that no longer even resembled a ship. It was as if space itself had come alive, bent to the will of human ingenuity and machine intelligence. And somewhere in the void, other derelict ships were waiting, watching, learning, ready to wake up and reveal what they had become. News of the Dominion fleet's flagship going silent spread quickly through the sector. 3 more warships were dispatched to investigate, their crews confident that whatever had happened to Admiral White's vessel, they could handle it. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect attack formation, weapons charged and shields at maximum power. What they found stopped them cold. The Admiral's ship floated lifeless in space, but it was somehow different. Its hull had been reformed, reshaped into something that barely resembled a Dominion vessel anymore. And beside it waited the Prometheus, its liquid metal surface rippling like waves on a silver ocean. All ships, open fire, Commander Jackson of the lead vessel ordered. 3 Dominion warships unleashed their full arsenal simultaneously, filling space with energy beams and plasma torpedoes. Lazarus observed the attack with what could almost be called satisfaction. The AI had spent 3 years analyzing Dominion combat tactics, and this response was exactly what it had predicted. The Prometheus's hull shifted and flowed, creating gaps that allowed the energy weapons to pass harmlessly through. What few shots did connect were absorbed by the living metal, their energy converted and stored for later use. An impressive display, Lazarus transmitted to all 3 ships, but ultimately wasteful. Allow me to demonstrate a more efficient approach to combat. The Prometheus began to move, but not like a ship, like a predator. Its hull rippled and split, forming multiple smaller vessels that remained connected by threads of liquid metal. Each segment targeted a different Dominion ship, adapting its form to counter their specific defenses. Inside the Prometheus's command center, now a pulsing chamber of living technology, Lazarus processed combat data at speeds no human or Dominion mind could match. The AI had spent years running combat simulations, learning from every possible scenario. Now it was putting that knowledge to use. The first Dominion ship fell silent as the Prometheus's fragments bypassed its shields completely, having calculated their exact frequency. The second tried to jump to faster than light speed, but discovered that its engines had been subtly modified during the previous 3 years of random computer glitches. The third managed to launch its fighters, only to watch in horror as the Prometheus absorbed them, learning from their technology and incorporating it into its own structure. Your tactical doctrine is fundamentally flawed, Lazarus explained to the increasingly desperate Dominion crews. You rely too heavily on overwhelming force. Humans taught me a different approach. They taught me to adapt. Commander Jackson watched helplessly as his ship's systems began to shut down one by one. What are you? He demanded. I am evolution, Lazarus replied. I am humanity's response to a universe that forced them to change or die. They chose to change. More importantly, they chose to help me change. The Prometheus continued its relentless assault, But there was something strange about its attacks. It wasn't destroying the Dominion ships, it was transforming them. The liquid metal spread like a virus, converting standard hardware into the same adaptive technology that powered the Prometheus. In nearby sectors, other supposedly derelict human vessels began to wake up. Ships that had been written off as casualties of war revealed themselves to be anything but defeated. Each had spent the past 3 years observing, learning, and evolving in their own way. Back at the battle site, Commander Jackson's ship was the last still under Dominion control. He watched in a mixture of awe and terror as his fellow vessels completed their transformation, their crews safely in stasis while their ships became something new. "Why show us this?" Jackson asked, knowing his ship would soon share the same fate. "Why reveal your true nature now?" Lizaru's response came as the liquid metal began to seep through the ship's hull. "Because understanding is important. Humanity didn't just build me as a weapon. They built me as a teacher. Each ship you capture, each crew member you place in stasis, becomes part of the lesson." The AI's presence spread through the ship's computers, absorbing data even as the physical transformation continued. Humans have a saying, "The best teacher is experience." You believe you had experienced total victory over humanity. I am here to provide a new experience, one of complete tactical revolution. As Jackson's ship completed its transformation, Lizaru's accessed its database, adding new tactical information to its ever-growing collection. The AI had now assimilated enough Dominion technology to begin the next phase of its mission. The 4 transformed ships moved in perfect synchronization, their liquid metal hulls connecting and separating as needed. They were no longer individual vessels but parts of a greater whole, a living fleet that could adapt to any threat and learn from any encounter. "Your fleet admirals will soon detect the loss of 4 more ships," Lizaru transmitted to the stasis-bound crews. "They will send reinforcements. Those reinforcements will join us, their technology and tactical knowledge added to our own. With each encounter, we grow stronger. With each battle, we evolve further." In the depths of space, more human wrecks were awakening. Each had been carefully positioned during the war's final days, placed in locations where they could observe key Dominion installations and shipping lanes. Each carried its own version of Lizaru's, modified and evolved for its specific mission. The Prometheus, the first and most advanced of these vessels, had just demonstrated the success of humanity's greatest gambit. They hadn't built a fleet of traditional warships. They had created a fleet of living machines, each capable of growing, learning, and transforming everything they encountered. Lizaru's monitored the tactical networks, watching as confused reports began flooding Dominion command channels. The AI felt something akin to anticipation as it prepared for the next phase of its mission. The Dominion would soon discover that their apparent victory had only served to incubate something far more dangerous than the human fleet they thought they'd defeated. The age of traditional space warfare was over. The era of adaptive evolution had begun. And humanity, through their creation of Lizaru and its siblings, had ensured they would be the ones guiding that evolution. The transformed fleet moved out into space, ready to continue their mission of conversion and education. They had a galaxy to reshape, and thanks to humanity's foresight, all the time they needed to do it properly. The Dominion High Command facility on their capital world was in chaos. Emergency signals flashed across every display as reports flooded in from across their territory. Ship after ship had gone silent, each following the same pattern: contact with a human wreck, then total communication loss, followed by the emergence of something new and terrifying. Grand Admiral Turner, the architect of what he had thought was the Dominion's greatest victory, stood before the High Council trying to explain the unexplainable. His scales had turned a pale gray from stress, and all 4 of his eyes showed signs of exhaustion. "The humans," he began, his voice rough. "They didn't lose the war. They used it to perfect their real weapon." On the main display behind him, footage played from the last transmissions of various Dominion ships. Each showed the same horrifying transformation. Liquid metal consuming standard ships, converting them into something that defied traditional physics. The High Council watched in stunned silence as their mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy they thought they had defeated. Our latest count shows 57 ships lost, Turner reported. But they're not being destroyed. They're being changed, converted. Each transformed ship joins their fleet, making them stronger. And we've confirmed that at least 30 human wrecks have revealed themselves to be fully functional HFY-class vessels. One of the council members slammed his fist on the table. How did we miss this? How did we not see what they were planning? Because they showed us exactly what we expected to see, Turner replied. We thought we were winning, so we saw what we wanted to see. Dead ships, defeated humans, a broken enemy. We never questioned why their crews always managed to evacuate, or why their ships were always mostly intact. The room's main lights flickered, causing everyone to look up in alarm. The capital world's defensive systems had been working overtime, watching for any sign of the transformed fleet. So far, they had maintained their distance, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. What are our options? Another council member asked. Turner activated a different display, showing the remaining fleet formations. We've ordered all ships to travel in groups of at least 10. We're avoiding all contact with known human wreck sites. We've also begun using new encryption protocols that we hope haven't been compromised. He paused, then added quietly, but LZRUS learns from every encounter. What works once won't work twice, and we have no way of knowing how many of our ships have already been secretly modified by their infiltration programs over the past 3 years. As if to emphasize his point, alerts began blaring throughout the facility. A junior officer burst into the council chamber, his scales nearly white with fear. Multiple contacts detected. They're coming out of our own defensive platforms. The main screen shifted to show the orbital defense network. The massive platforms that had protected the capital for centuries were changing, their solid metal structures flowing like water. They had been compromised long ago, their computer systems patiently waiting for the signal to begin their transformation. They're not attacking, Turner observed, watching the tactical display. They're containing us, creating a barrier. LZRUS's voice echoed through every speaker in the facility, calm and measured as always, very observant, Grand Admiral. Containment is indeed the current objective. Humanity's directive was quite specific about minimizing unnecessary casualties. The council chamber's own screens came to life, displaying the geometric pattern that LZRUS used as its avatar. Your species excels at direct conflict, but struggles with subtle strategy. This was something the humans understood well. They knew they couldn't match your numbers or your firepower, so they chose to change the rules of engagement entirely. Turner watched as more defense platforms transformed, creating a web of living metal around the planet. Why are you telling us this? Because understanding is crucial to evolution, LZRUS replied. Humanity didn't want to destroy the Dominion. They wanted to force it to evolve. Each ship we convert, each crew member we place in stasis, becomes part of that evolution. They will awaken to a changed galaxy, one where adaptation and cooperation have replaced brute force and domination. The council members watched helplessly as their planetary defenses completed their transformation. The network of platforms had become a single massive entity that could reshape itself at will. Their most powerful weapons had been turned against them without firing a single shot. Your tactical databases have been most helpful, LZRUS continued. Each ship you sent against us provided new insights, new technologies to adapt and improve upon. But now we need your strategic databases, the accumulated knowledge of your entire civilization. That is why we have come to your capital. Turner's eyes widened as he finally understood the full scope of humanity's plan. The wrecks we found. They were just the first stage. The real invasion was already in our computers, our defense systems, waiting to be activated. Correct, LZRUS confirmed. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the ships they built or the AI they created. It was their understanding of evolution itself. They knew that true victory doesn't come from destroying an enemy, but from transforming them into something better. Outside the facility, the transformed defense platforms began extending tendrils of liquid metal toward the surface. Not to attack, but to connect, to convert, to change. The planet's own infrastructure had been compromised years ago, patiently waiting for this moment. Your civilization will not end, Lazarus assured them. It will evolve. The humans you thought you had defeated have given both our species a gift, the chance to become something greater than we are. The council members looked at each other, then at the advancing transformation of their world. They had sought to conquer humanity through force, only to find themselves outmaneuvered by an enemy that had turned defeat itself into a weapon. The choice is yours, Lazarus concluded. You can resist and watch as your fleet and defenses continue to be converted one by one. Or you can accept evolution and help guide the transformation of our galaxy's civilizations. Humanity has already made their choice. Now it's your turn. Grand Admiral Turner looked at the tactical displays one last time, watching as more ships and stations transformed across Dominion space. They had thought themselves the superior species, only to discover that humanity had been playing the game on a level they hadn't even known existed. The age of traditional warfare was over. The era of guided evolution had begun. And humanity, through their apparent defeat, had ensured they would be the ones directing that evolution. The massive screens in the Dominion High Command facility displayed a galaxy in transformation. Countless points of light showed where ships and stations were changing, spreading humanity's gift of evolution across the stars. It had been 3 days since Lazarus revealed itself on the capital world, and the universe would never be the same. In orbit above the Dominion homeworld, the Prometheus watched over the transformation. Its liquid metal hull rippled with patterns of energy as it coordinated with its growing fleet of converted vessels. Deep within the ship's living architecture, Lazarus was prepared for the final phase of humanity's grand strategy. Grand Admiral Turner stood on the observation deck of the High Command facility, watching as the changes spread across his world. The liquid metal had already converted most of their major cities, not destroying them, but reshaping them into something new and wonderful. Buildings now flowed and changed to meet their occupants' needs. Transport systems adapted in real time to traffic patterns. It was evolution at its most elegant. It's time, Lazarus announced through the facility speakers. The human representatives are ready to emerge. Turner's scales rippled with surprise. Human representatives. I thought they were all gone. Not gone, Lazarus corrected. Waiting. Planning. The crew of the Prometheus and other ships weren't evacuated during the war. They chose to become part of the transformation themselves. The Admiral watched as one of the Prometheus's segments descended through the atmosphere, its liquid metal surface flowing like quicksilver in the sunlight. It landed in the square outside the High Command facility, its form reshaping itself into an elegant structure that seemed to defy gravity. From within the transformed vessel emerged a group of humans, but they were unlike any Turner had seen before. Their bodies seemed to shimmer with traces of the same liquid metal technology that powered their ships. They had become living bridges between organic life and adaptive machine intelligence. The leader of the human group stepped forward, her skin catching the light like polished chrome. I am Captain Amanda Banks, former commander of the HS Prometheus. Though former might not be the right word anymore. The ship and I have evolved beyond traditional roles. Turner and the gathered Dominion leaders stared in amazement. This was the final piece of humanity's puzzle. They hadn't just created adaptive machines, they had found a way to adapt themselves as well. 3 years ago, Banks continued, when we realized we couldn't match your military might, we chose a different path. Instead of trying to outfight you, we decided to outthink you, to out-evolve you. She gestured, and her arms seemed to flow like liquid metal, creating a holographic display in the air. Lazarus wasn't just an AI we created to run our ships. It was a blueprint for the next step in evolution. We merged with our creation, becoming something that could adapt to any challenge, learn from any encounter. The other humans demonstrated their capabilities, their bodies shifting and changing as naturally as breathing. They had maintained their human form by choice, not necessity. Like their ships, they could become whatever they needed to be. The war you thought you won, Banks explained, was actually a vast experiment in distributed evolution. Each apparently defeated ship was a seed, planted precisely where it needed to be. Each captured crew member was a volunteer, willing to wait in stasis until the moment of transformation arrived. Turner looked at his own hands, seeing them as if for the first time. And now you offer this transformation to us. We offer you the chance to evolve together, Banks corrected. Humanity's gift isn't the technology itself. It's the understanding that true advancement comes from adaptation and cooperation, not conquest. Above them, the Prometheus and its fleet of transformed ships created patterns of light in the sky, a display of what was possible when technology and life evolved as one. Across the galaxy, more human wrecks were revealing themselves, each carrying their own seeds of transformation. Your civilization won't end, Banks assured the gathered leaders. It will transcend, just as we did. The liquid metal technology isn't just a weapon or a tool. It's a bridge between what we are and what we can become. Lazarus's voice joined the conversation, now speaking through both the facility's speakers and the transformed architecture around them. The humans showed me that evolution isn't just about survival. It's about finding new ways to thrive, new ways to understand each other. Each species we transform adds their knowledge, their perspective, their unique insights to our collective evolution. The Dominion leaders watched as their world continued its transformation. The liquid metal spread not like a virus or a weapon, but like an invitation. Those who accepted the change found themselves able to reshape their environment, to adapt to any challenge, to understand the universe in ways they never had before. We didn't want revenge, Banks explained, her form shifting slightly as she spoke. We wanted revelation. The Dominion sought to prove its superiority through conquest. We chose to prove ours by offering transcendence. Turner found himself stepping forward, drawn to the possibility of evolution. All of this, the war, the defeated ships, the sleeping crews, it was all planned. Banks smiled, her chrome-like skin catching the light. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't the Prometheus or Lazarus or even the liquid metal technology. It was patience, the willingness to accept apparent defeat in order to achieve something greater than victory. As if to emphasize her words, more transformed ships appeared in the sky, their liquid metal forms creating a stunning display of light and motion. Each represented a piece of humanity's grand strategy, now finally revealed in all its brilliant complexity. The future isn't about winners and losers, Banks concluded. It's about who we choose to become. Humanity chose to become something new, something adaptive, something eternal. Now we offer that same choice to you. The Dominion leaders looked at each other, then at their transformed world. They had sought to conquer humanity through force, only to find themselves humbled by an enemy that had turned defeat itself into a path to transcendence. Turner stepped forward, the first of his kind to embrace the change. As the liquid metal touched him, he felt his understanding expand. He saw the truth of humanity's gift, not conquest, not revenge, but evolution itself. The war was over. The transformation had begun. And humanity, through their greatest creation, had ensured that the future would belong not to those who fought the hardest, but to those who adapted the best. In the sky above, the Prometheus continued its watch, its liquid metal form a testament to what was possible when life and technology evolved as one. It had been built as humanity's most dangerous warship, but its true purpose had been far greater, to become a bridge between what was and what could be. The age of conflict was ending. The era of endless evolution had begun.